Hi everyone. This is a quick video to explain the process to apply to case study in business management, which is a really important skill as you work through the subject. So, what is the purpose of business management? Well, essentially, it's about preparing you to solve real business problems into the future. That's kind of like what we're doing here. It's the intent of the subject. And so, a big part of that is taking the theory that you have learned and applying it to specific business problems or opportunities. Students in the past want you to, assessors in the past have wanted you to do two broad things. Number one, they want you to recall the relevant content. So yes, there's things you're going to have to remember in business management, and yes, you're going to have to tell the assessor that you know those things. But you also need to apply this content to simulated situations. And this is kind of the focus of the video today, and one of the key skills that students can often struggle with. The recommended approach that this video is going to take you through is just that. It's just a recommendation. There are other ways that you can go about making sure that you both recall the content and apply to the particular business problems. This is just one way that you could go about that. Okay, before we get started, let's start with common mistakes that students will make when they're trying to apply the theory to a case study. And the first one is what we call storytelling. And what this essentially means is the student will respond very literally to the question about what will be the effect on that business, that specific scenario business or case study business that's presented. And they'll go into a great lot of detail about all these things that are going to happen to the business and all the things that the managers or owners could do, but they haven't actually drawn any content in from what they've learned. And then the second problem is forgetting to apply to case study and essentially just giving a theoretical answer or doing so with insufficient detail, just using a very generic language. We want to avoid both of those things, and this split approach is a way that you can do that. Okay, so here's going to be your approach for case study questions. First of all, annotate the question using the TLC strategy that you have learned. Task word, limiting word, and then core focus. Then your second step is going to be to plan out the marks, making sure that you split out the theory components to the case study components, which will help you figure out where the marks are coming from. And then step three is writing your response, making sure that when you've written something and a theoretical idea, your case study idea then applies that same thing that you talked about, the same concept, the same kind of idea. They should be matching like a pair. All right, let's do a practice. So here we've written a case study. If you wanted to pause the video to take a little bit more time to understand this, then you can. But essentially, Frankie at 18 dropped out of school after struggling through year 11. But their passion for sneakers and natural flair for design led them to launch Laced Up, a small business specializing in hand-painted one-of-a-kind shoes. Okay, so pause the video to read the rest of that case study, and now we're going to go into some application of that. Okay, question one. Describe one personal motivation of Frankie for starting their business Laced Up. So first of all, you're going to know that this is a case study question, not a straight theory question. And there's two clues here. One is the name of the owner, in this case, or a character from the case study, or if it mentions the business name. If it does either of those two things, you know it's a case study question, and we recommend that you take this split approach. So what does this look like? Describe one personal motivation for Frankie for starting their business. What we would love you to do is start with your theoretical response to that question. A definition in this case of one type of personal motivation. And the way you can kind of do that is if you have a look at the question, you can kind of like replace this word Frankie with an owner and replace the business name with a business. And so the theoretical response to this question would be describe one personal motivation of an owner for starting their business. And just pretend that that was the only question that you were answering. And in that case, you would just give a definition of one type of personal motivation. Then for the second mark, you're going to show how this type of personal motivation applied to Frankie. And here is where they need to kind of pair up. And this is what it could look like. So your first mark would be something like this. One motivation to start a business is the desire for personal independence, which relates to, and then you go and tell me what that is. An individual's need to earn a living from making their own decisions, often working in areas of personal interest. And so you can see here that applies to most businesses. That is true for most businesses, and that's the theory that you've learned about personal motivations for starting a business. So that's the first mark, TH for theory. Now for your second mark, CS for case study, you then are going to apply those key ideas here to this particular business case study. And so we've got here 4 laced up. It's really strongly recommended you start all your case study applications with 4 and then the business name, just to show your assessor you're moving on to the case study application. And here we say, Frankie didn't connect with the rigid structures of school, so managed to start a business that was more aligned with their personal need for creative freedom relating to their interest in sneaker designing. So how have we done this? Well, essentially you can see we've got key ideas in the theory component, such as often working in areas of personal interest. And then you can see here, I've got the case study version of that, interest in sneaker designing. All right, I've got the idea here of personal independence, and then I'm replacing that down here with didn't connect with the rigid structures of school. And so I'm using information from the case study to essentially replace the generic language I see here for more specific applications of that in the case study link down below. Let's have another one. All right, question 2. Discuss the importance of business concept development for Laced Up. Now, as you all should know by now, discuss is benefits and limitations, and we've got 4 marks. And so when we're doing our answer planning, we want to essentially split up the theory from the case study. Theory, case study. And then so the theory is going to be marks 1 and 3, benefit, limitation. And then you can see marks 2 and 4 are going to be how that benefit applies to Laced Up, and then how that limitation applies to Laced Up. So let's have a look and see what that could look like. One benefit is, there we go, that signposting again. Hey, assessor, I'm moving on to the benefit. One benefit is the owner is extremely clear on how their business is different to the competition. This is beneficial as a clear point of difference can assist with ongoing business success against the competition. Look at this generic language I'm using here. Their business. I'm not using laced up here. The competition. I'm not mentioning the competition. Clear point of difference. That's just a theoretical idea. I'm not mentioning what the clear point of difference for laced up would be. And now we do the application. Here we go. 4 laced up. Signpost your answers. Frankie, for laced up, Frankie has this clear point of difference of custom fresh designs. So I'm replacing this idea with a more specific one. Would allow her to compete against other sneaker brands. So the competition, such as Nike, and make her brand clear to new teenagers who come across her social media posts, specific things from this particular business that I've applied why having a business concept is important for this specific one. Because Frankie's got very unique designs on her shoes, and she needs to be able to show teenagers how cool they are and be very clear on why they should go to her store and not others. And then this is what the limitation would look like. It could take time to develop from other important tasks, which can delay the time it takes to start the business. So I've just got organizing suppliers, nice and generic. Other important tasks, I haven't been specific on what that might be. Let's have a look here. For laced up, Frankie would need to get as many custom designer shoes. Now, I'm not saying products. I'm making it very specific to this business. On her social media as fast as possible, and then I'm bringing in things from Frankie's world, as she is no longer studying and needs to generate an income to possibly pay rent, as the time taken to develop this business concept could delay this. So Frankie, in the case study, has left school, and so it's highly possible that Frankie's got living expenses now to pay for. That's very specific to this particular business, not a generic theoretical thing. And that's what we want to see. We want to see you apply what is appropriate for all businesses, and then what that means for this specific business. All right, so to quickly summarize, split up your response between the theory and case study application. If you need to go back some of those examples that I went over pretty quickly, please do. Your theory should be generic in nature and be true for most businesses. That's the stuff that you read in your textbook. It's the stuff that you are presented in the slides from your teachers. But then your case study application should be very specific to the provided business, replacing that generic language with industry-specific language. So I'm talking about custom design sneakers. I'm not talking about product features. So here I would say product features, and here I would say custom design sneakers.